Welcome to the Freedom Club Podcast, where we strive to pull you out of your life of quiet desperation, out of your comfort zone of misery, and propel you into a life of freedom and fulfillment. And now, here's your host for this journey, international speaker and coach, and serial entrepreneur, Kurt Mercadante.
And welcome to the Freedom Club Podcast. I'm your host, Kurt Mercadante. As the intro said, it is the first interview segment of 2019, and I am so happy you are here. As I said on Monday, we have a wonderful guest today. She's international personal branding expert, Dr. Natalia Wiechowski. She joined us from Dubai, and as you will hear in today's episode, we did this interview as a live stream in the Freedom Club community. You hear me talk about it a lot. If you're not a member of the community, go to Facebook, search for the Freedom Club community, search me, find my name, you'll find the community. We just surpassed 500 members. We're going to be at 10,000 members by the end of this year. We have exclusive content. We have live streams as I tape these podcasts. We have ongoing discussions. We allow members to provide their own live streams, webinars. We have all of it. So I urge you to join. If you're listening to this podcast and you are already a member of the Freedom Club community, thank you so much for not only being a member of the community, but for making it such an engaging place to be. So without further delay, here's my interview today with Dr. Natalia Wiechowski. You know, she and I met and kind of run in the same circles on LinkedIn well over a year ago, but this interview was actually the first time we met face-to-face. It was over the computer, but got to have a discussion. And it did not disappoint. She is an absolute rock star. She's a keynote speaker. She's a LinkedIn trainer. She's an edutainer. She explains what that means during the course of the podcast. But, you know, she had a journey similar to mine. You know, she was in the corporate grind, the 9 to 5. She kind of had a crisis in terms of wanting to know her purpose in life. She took some time off. She had that epiphany, and she's come back in a huge way, and she is changing lives across the world. Here is my interview with Dr. Natalia Wiechowski. We have Dr. Natalia Wiechowski today, and the doctor is from her PhD, but for purposes of me not screwing everything up, and as you can see from the background, Natalia and Think Natalia is the brand. And your glasses, by the way, I don't know if you've seen my logo. Your glasses actually could be on my logo, or my beard in my logo almost has the same color. So
it's hilarious.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. This is awesome.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I really look forward to our conversation.
Yeah, we've never actually spoken before, but we've kind of floated around LinkedIn posts and comments and all that. Yeah. And I had last year, I had Dr. Josh Luke on, who I know that you know, and you both have something in common, that you have edutainer in your titles. So I'd love to talk more about that. But this is, you know, the name of the podcast is the Freedom Club Podcast. And what it's about is we have a lot of business owners here, but we also have people in a corporate 9 to 5 who maybe are seeking freedom. You know, a lot of people jump from 9 to 5, and I definitely want to talk about your story, because you had this epiphany and this journey where people want to jump to a life of freedom. Now, you can do that within your current job, but some people want to break free, start their own business. And to do that and to be successful, obviously branding is a big part of that. And I get a lot of questions. We did a poll in our Facebook group about the number of, you know, different topics you'd like to see more of or discussed more in the group next year. And personal branding was number 1 by far.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for choosing me for this topic then.
Yes. So that's awesome. So, but the first question I always like to ask, it's the only kind of really set question, is the word freedom. And what does that word mean to you?
Freedom is very closely connected to independence for me, which means being not dependent on other people. For me, it means that I can do almost whatever I want with my time. And that not only time, I think it's also, because there's so much freedom. There's emotional freedom, there's financial freedom, there's spiritual freedom. So I think it's a very diverse term for me that goes into the inner world, but also in the materialistic world. So it's an inside outside thing. But I guess mainly time and money are the first two things that I would associate with it.
Got it. Got it. And you had a journey, and I love in your LinkedIn profile, you talk about this and the link between personal branding and living a life of freedom and having the ability to do what you want and experience those things by building your brand. And I love that you list in your resume sabbatical, because it seems like that sabbatical obviously had a huge change in your life, where you had worked for some major brands, working for them, corporate, and then you had this epiphany. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I've studied social science, and when you do that, there is not the job waiting for you out there. So you could end up in marketing, you could end up in HR, you could end up working somewhere, I don't know, for a party, for anything, doing pro bono work. So my first job found me, and I decided to take it. It was in the educational sector, and working for government. I did that 3.5 years, and then I realized, let's try the private sector. Amazing. Let's try marketing. Fantastic. Did that. Also realized, nah, not really my thing. What's the next thing? But this was when I was on a how can I say that? Where everything in my life changed in a way that people started to say, oh, Natalia, you made it. You're so successful. You're amazing. You're always positive. I mean, wow, you made it. And I was 29 at that time. And I was highly confused because people perceived me as successful and very positive, but I had access to my mind and to my insecurities. And I was not happy. I was not successful. I was continuously sick. I was consuming like a crazy person. I was beating myself up emotionally to an extent where I literally ended up in hospital once, twice per month, and no doctor could find a solution. So, this went on for a while until somehow mysteriously, I realized to see signals. So one signal was a message somewhere on Facebook or post which said, the pain that you're going through is self-created. And I was like, ouch, oops, what does that even mean? I don't get it, but it feels really deep. Or another thing was, be the change that you want to see in the world. And I thought, that explains why I feel like a wasted, useless resource, wasting everything that I've ever learned in my time and that stupid job that doesn't add value. So this was the point where I realized, apparently, it's the right time to, hit the stop button or the reset button, go on a sabbatical, forget everything that I've ever learned, question everything that I've ever learned, and change the way how I think, speak, act, eat, consume, change the people in my life, and start forgiving and forgetting and figuring out why I'm here on this planet. Because if I continue like this, there's no way. I mean, I need to be so much pain. I hope this answers your question.
Yeah, no, it totally does. And you brought up, success, and people thought you were successful. And it's, as much as people like to share motivational memes and things and GIFs and or GIFs, however you pronounce it, on Facebook, I think we still need to perhaps redefine what success means, because people thought you were outwardly successful. You may have, on a surface level, thought, well, I'm successful, right? Or people associate that with paycheck or whatever, or status or title. But you came to the realization that maybe you had to redefine that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't know where to start. And that whole thing just scared the hell out of me, because it meant that everything, the foundation, the values, the safe bubble that I've created for myself, this illusion of control, was all massively challenged. And I had no clue in which direction I go. It was literally like Alice, falling down the rabbit hole. It's like, what's going on?
How long did it, Tony Robbins talks about, real change occurring when the pain of not changing becomes greater than the change of, the status quo. How long did it take you for that pain to reach that threshold where you were finally like, I got to change now?
I think the first big, like massive moment where I realized what on earth am I doing with my life was at the age of 23. And I changed a few things, but I didn't have the courage to really dig deeper and to figure out what it is that I want to do. I was at that stage, I was still thinking, I want too much. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm different because I'm not the real German. You know, I have this Polish roots from my parents. Maybe that's because I'm a mix, or maybe it's because I'm young, or maybe, or whatever. I was telling myself all of these stupid nonsense lies just to distract from it, continue going towards the direction which I thought I had to do because everybody else was doing it, so it must be right. So I guess I needed 6 years.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah. No, it's, and I run across people every week who refuse to make the change. They'll sign up for a discovery call. They'll say, this is for me. And then they just disappear. And you can tell that they, or even people who jump into my coaching program, we just ask, if you had a magic wand, what kind of life would you want to live? And they feel like they need permission from someone else, even to write that down on a piece of paper.
Crazy, huh? Yeah.
And so you mentioned, it's interesting about your thoughts about, I'm not a real German, at Polish roots. A lot of times thoughts come in our head because of things we've heard from other people or external. Is that something you had to deal with externally? Or is people kind of making you feel that way and saying that?
Yeah, I mean, my parents come both from Poland, and I spoke Polish until kindergarten. And then in kindergarten, I learned the German language. So, I mean, until now, I can swap between both roles. Like, I'm a German, I'm a Polish, although my Polish isn't that good nowadays because I don't use it that often. So I very quickly understood that there are two cultures and two different ways of looking at life, looking at work, looking at family, looking at religion, looking at humor. And I always gave my best to find the balance for myself, but to play the role whenever I needed to play a specific role to reach my targets. Because I don't know, I think from a very young age, I understood that somehow life is a stage and we need to play these roles to a specific extent. But yeah, I'm a person, I think because of my Polish upbringing, I've been raised in a way that I always listen to authority, and I always used to listen to authority, and I always used to listen to the advice of older people because they're more mature, they've been there, so it makes sense. So yes, listening to all of these guidelines and advice is fantastic, but I never had the courage to pause after that and to figure out what it means to me, if that is true to me, to find my own answer. And this is what I taught myself during that sabbatical.
Interesting. It's, and you talk about purpose and kind of linking that purpose between your personal brand and your purpose and finding that. I did a course last year called Your Purpose is Your Brand, just based on my own personal belief that a lot of people try to put forth a brand that just is BS or what they think it should be. And, like I get made fun of sometimes. I wear the superhero shirts, it's funny. I started growing my beard 2 years ago for Movember. And the more people or relatives would say they didn't like the beard, it was kind of like, nope, it's getting longer. The more you tell me you don't like it. And so I really had to adopt that mindset, like you said, like, I don't listen to I used to listen to authority more. So I want to talk about that more, but first real quick, speaking of your journey, Polish roots, growing up in Germany, how did you end up in Dubai?
How did I end up in Dubai? So when I was studying, I was on the highest level of my dancing career. So I was dancing, German championships, world championships, European championships as a soloist in a group. And I was told that I need to have international experience if I want to make it and be successful. Especially as a German, our English, usually isn't that good. So you need to work abroad somewhere. So some of my friends, they did that while they studied. They went abroad for a semester, trimester, whatever, and they came back full of debts. And when I asked them, what did you learn? They said, I was dating, I was clubbing. And I was like, that's against my core values. and I don't want to kill dancing for that. And I hate myself if I go abroad right now, say no to so many things that are important to me, to stuff that I don't believe in, and I just do that for my CV, forget it. So I made the active decision that I continue dancing, continue studying, and then the first job that I get will be abroad. That was what I decided, and that's what I told the universe. And I said, I don't care how, you just do it. That's not my problem. And that's exactly what happened. So I was writing my master thesis, and then a very good friend of mine, he got the information that there is a project in the UAE. He was part of it, and he said, "Listen, we cannot fill this one vacancy, and I think it has your name on it. Have a look at it. If you think it's worth applying, I can send you a description of it, and then if there's anything else I can help you with, I'll definitely support you." And boom, that's exactly what happened.
Wow. So it's during the sabbatical and kind of discovering your purpose. Is it, there's some people who, when I work with them, they can kind of come up with their vision statement for their life that combines their purpose and the impact they want to make pretty quickly. I had one client who said, you make it very easy for us to define our vision statement, but not necessarily, it's harder work to define one. He said that I would be happy to tattoo on my chest. That's what he said, But then other people take months. It took me, like, when I really started working at it, it took me months to come up with mine. How did that process work for you, since you were kind of figuring it out as you went, right?
It was painful, it was messy, and it took forever because I did it on my own. I didn't ask for professional help. So for me, it was literally, first of all, literally cleansing, detoxing. That was the first step. And then once I was somehow in the mindset of allowing new things, then I started reading more about social media. I read about successful people out there, and I read about this interesting jobs that I never knew existed, until I really understood that my dream job doesn't exist unless I create it. Which was exciting, but then again terrifying, because now I already there was nothing what I can hold or stick to. And now I even got rid of even more stability, because it means that the world is your oyster. You get what you decide on, you get what you work on. Like, nobody's going to do that work for you. Nobody's going to tell you what you do, how you do that. You all need to define that. And I was like, ugh. So I, at a certain stage, I just literally created a list with things that I always wanted to do, and I did them bit by bit. So I started writing or blogging because, writing for a PhD thesis was very boring, and it was academic, and you cannot swear and you cannot be sarcastic. I was like, fuck that. I need to express myself.
Sure.
So blogging was awesome. I also started, taking pictures and being an influencer. I wanted to see what that actually means. Played a little bit with Instagram. I started public speaking. I always liked people, and I, literally failed myself up there. And I realized that, well, apparently what I do, what I'm good at is listening, and then explaining things to people in a way that helps them. And it's also about marketing other people, or the way how they present themselves. So it's a mix out of that. And I just love making people laugh, and I love to spread knowledge. So this is when the edutainer came in. So it's a mix between education and entertainment. So I'm this clown. I have this thing in me. I need to play with one voice. I need to do crazy things with my face. I'm very expressive. I cannot be serious. It drives me insane. And that needs to get out of my system. But on the other side, I want to teach people. So this is when I somehow realized, I want to edutain people. And the best way, at least for this life phase, is through teaching people how to market themselves. Do I want to do that forever? I'm not sure. What I know is I want to make people think and laugh. And the outlet or the way how I do that over the years might change. That's how I would see it.
If one thing that you said that's just so powerful and so true is, if what I want to do, what I really want to do isn't out there, then I have to create it. And as you work with folks who may have to come to that realization, how do you find they react to that knowledge, and how can you help them get over the hump of, no, I'm in this box, I've been in sales for 20 years, I'm only a salesperson, to get out of that hump and to go create something?
Good question. So I usually also give them, one exercise to start with. Well, how does your perfect morning look like? And then they're like, I don't know. I was like, but if you knew, oh, well, it's like, I don't know it. I'm not you. I don't have your values. Like, do you want to wake up next to a guy or a girl or a cat? Do you want to wake up on your own? What do you want to see? Like, do you clap twice and then, the blinds open? Do you have to press a button? Is there music? Do you have a DJ in your living room? What do you want to eat? Do you start with meditation? Like, tell me, because I think it's important and you need to allow yourself that. So I pushed them to do these funny exercises. But if I realize that they don't sit down, they cannot do that, then I tell them to work with an expert on this matter, which is usually literally a life coach, because then it goes literally into limiting beliefs. And I know a lot about it, but I'm not the specialist on eliminating wrong beliefs or traumas. In the area of social media, personal branding, content strategy, yes, but not when it comes to what am I allowing myself in life? That goes to something deeper that I'm not qualified to fix. But the majority of people that I worked with life coaches and career coaches before, and then they come to me and then they start working with me.
Excellent. Yeah, there's a lot of folks I feel who, and I had a PR and ad agency for 13 years, and it was the same thing there as I see now sometimes, which is, I do a lot of videos on LinkedIn and the number one question is, it's about tools or tactics. What kind of camera do you use? What type of this do you use? What type of that do you use? I'm like, don't just forget about that.
My smartphone. Focus
on what you want to say. Focus on because I see people who do videos that put me to sleep. And it's like, well, it's not that video's not working. It's that some other fundamental things aren't working. You talk about that, LinkedIn, that there were several viral articles, things that went viral. And I think it's easy when some people think personal branding, they might think of like Kim Kardashian or, certain things on Instagram or other things. And I think they confuse it with the tools of, well, it's just Instagram or it's just Facebook or it's just this, or vanity. They get caught up in vanity metrics. And it's well, I can't build my personal brand unless I get 140,000
1 million followers.
Exactly. How do you combat that? And what do you tell folks who get so hung up on that? And maybe they do it, they do videos for 2 weeks and they're like, this isn't working. And then they throw it out.
Oh, really? Have you ever seen any athlete who turned into a world champion in 2 weeks? I haven't. Same happens with singers, Mariah Carey or I don't know, Whitney Houston or Beyonce. They also, they trained for years until they got there. I usually go back to, could you please explain personal branding to me? Because I'm not sure if we're talking about the same thing. And then they're like, oh yeah, no, you explain me what personal branding means. And this is then when I change the perception of that term, because I think it's used very often, and a lot of people who are not personal branding experts also talk about it. It's like with motivation. Everybody talks about motivation today, although they're not motivation speakers. The same happened to personal branding. So I think there's a lot of confusion around the term. And I always say, personal branding is self-marketing. Some people also call it impression management. See it as your life or career insurance. So no matter what happens, you can always fall back on your personal brand if you've done the homework. And in the end, personal branding is about understanding who you are, what is important to you, what you're the expert in, what you have to offer, why people should work with you, how you want to make people feel, what you're going to talk about, how you're going to help the world, make it a better place, how you're going to walk and talk and dress. This is a very rough idea of what personal branding is. And you don't need to create viral content when you don't know what your values are, that will not work. I mean, content in the end is just a tool to transport your message, to generate leads and to build a business on what you do. Because in the majority of cases, the people that I work with, they didn't marry rich, their parents aren't rich, and we live in a society which is, based on economic or on capitalist principles. So we all need money, not only to enjoy life, but even to survive. So, have a look at the bigger picture. Why do you do what you want to do? Know the basics first.
In one of the list of things that make up personal branding, one that you said that stuck out to me was how you make people feel. Mm-hmm. And when I was working in politics, there were people who just shared statistics, and then there were people who shared stories or narratives to make you build that emotional bridge. And when I started out coaching, because I had my agency and then I shut it down at peak revenue because I hated it. I was just unfulfilled. And I had been coaching as a side hustle. And so I moved that up. I'm like, no, that's what I want to do. So I started making videos. And for like 2 months, I was talking about my program. I was talking about me. I was talking about certain things, and it was kind of crickets. And someone suggested me, no, talk about the outcomes, talk about the challenges you went through, talk about how someone's going to feel after working. And as soon as I made that switch, 3 clients the first week.
Boom. Amazing.
And, one question I got, and I think he might even be here watching, but we at our LinkedIn local here, the last one we had, someone asked, he sells insurance. Mm-hmm. And his question was, well, how do I go about making videos? Because what I do is boring. And like what you do, you have fun and you coach. And I won't say what I told him, but what would you say to someone like that? Like, I'm selling insurance. I'm an accountant. I'm an attorney. How do I build a personal brand about something that's quote unquote boring?
Well, what would you have to do to make it interesting? That would be the first thing. Or why do you think it's boring? And if it's boring, then, it might be time for some change. Maybe that's not the right job, just say. But you can make everything interesting by putting yourself into the shoes of your audience. I mean, we all need to sell somehow. So in an ideal world, you always have a customer avatar. So it could be Tony, 42, married, 2 children, lives in North America, loves, I don't know, American football and food, right? That's the avatar. So when you create content, make it in a way that it's appealing to Tony. Use examples out of Tony's life, speak Tony's language, and talk about Tony's problems, but not in a way that you intimidate and scare Tony, but empower him instead. Talk about a challenge that he has in his everyday life, and he'll feel, yes, exactly, just the same thing that I'm going through every day. And then you have your second or your third sentence, and then Tony's like, yeah. So what should I do? What's your solution? Then you come up with a solution, like a hint of a solution, and then you come up with a call to action, a question, so you engage people. And this is what content is all about. It's about helping people bit by bit, or empowering them, sharing information with them, making them think, laugh, depending on how you want to make people feel. But in majority of cases, people want to either inspire, empower, or make people feel more beautiful or being heard. Like, these are the core feelings that people want to trigger, to make an impact and also to generate leads. I mean, that's the truth.
Sure. And as you talk about emotion and making people feel a certain way, Sam Ellingwood, who is a member of the Facebook community, I think he just joined. As soon as he saw that you were going to be on, he said, "You got to please ask her this question." So the lead up to that is, so I went to the University of Iowa, and their former coach was a psychology major in college. And what he did was he read somewhere that the color pink had a very soothing, relaxing tone. And so he painted the visitors' locker room pink. And it's been that way for 30 years to kind of calm them down and keep them from doing it. I also remember seeing a study, this was like 30 years ago, though I remember seeing it, that it was a study amongst American football teams and the colors they wore. And those football teams that wore black were penalized more. They played a little more dirty. And it was just that feeling of color. So Sam's question was, please ask her about color, because you talk about color. Obviously, I can see you right now. I can see certainly the blue standing out. What's the link between color and personal branding and emotions and the feels?
I ran into a lady who was that 1.5 years ago, I think. She calls herself a color psychologist. And I didn't know that something like color psychology existed, but then I researched a little bit more about it. And I also realized that big companies use the same tools and techniques and elements. Apparently it's like that certain colors subconsciously trigger certain feelings and moods in us. That's, for example, the reason why everything that is fast food is always in a red color, because we cannot stand red. That means if you want to make sure that a person doesn't stay long at your place, turn it into red, paint the walls red.
I'm wearing a red shirt. I'm repelling everyone.
Yeah, but it's also interesting because red also stands for passion. So there's always a positive and a negative aspect of it. Blue, for example, stands for truth, for expressing yourself, for trust, and everything in that creative area. So and for communication. So that's why you'll see that a lot of social media brands like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, it's all blue because it's about communication, it's about expressing, it's about trust. So it makes sense to Google color psychology or what are colors used for in branding, and then based on that also use these colors for your own logo, but also when, in the way how you dress. So I know, for example, that the color black, as you mentioned it really lowers your energy. So when I wake up and I'm hyper energetic and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what to do, I'm so excited. And I have a meeting with a group of, let's say, 5 men, and they're very conservative and they are in their 60s. And I will be the only woman in that room. I need to wear black or a very dark blue, because when I show up there in yellow, I will be all over the place. So black will get my energy level down, and I will be able to communicate with them in a way and, get the right signals out that they will see me as an authority. While when I speak, for example, to students, and I know that they're hyper, and I have 200 or 300 of them in a room, I would go for either a yellow if it's more about fun, or I would go for a green tone when it comes from the heart, when the message really comes, deep down out of the heart. And people feel that and people sense that. And I think we're intuitively super intelligent and we know that, but we're not aware of it in a majority of cases. So it makes sense to read a little bit about it and experiment with it. And based on your mood, you will also pick different colors. I mean, observe yourself the next time when you stand in front of your closet. How do I feel? Which color am I grabbing? What does it say about me? Do I feel hyper? Okay, let's tone it down. Do I feel negative? Okay, let's use a brighter color because it will raise your mood and your vibration. Sounds a little bit crazy, but works perfectly for me and my work.
Interesting. Whether it's color or something else regarding personal branding and emotion and feel, do you notice huge swings or differences between, for instance, the Middle East or Germany or the US in terms of how these things work, or is it universal?
I think it's universal. I mean, that's why I guess when you think about nature, I mean, we all know it's green. I mean, McDonald's changed its logo, for example, from red to green in Europe a few years ago because they don't want to be perceived as that fast food unhealthy thing anymore. And they added a little bit of lettuce and 2 slices of apple into their menu. And now they're so green and healthy. Nothing against McDonald's. I don't eat there anymore, but people should do whatever makes them happy. I think when it comes to colors, there is a universal language that we know. We know that black and gold is something luxurious. Purple is somehow royal. Yeah, so it makes sense to figure it out, play with it, experiment with it, and see what works for you and your business and brand.
So the final question before we get, I know we have some people online that might have some questions here, but so let's say I'm a business owner. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm about a year into my business, mm-hmm. and things just aren't clicking. You know, mm-hmm. I've tried throwing some stuff up on Facebook. I've tried some videos. I've tried some whatever, and nothing, I'm not getting anything in terms of sales, creating buzz, anything like that. What are, a few nuggets of advice that you would give me where to start, other than hiring you, of course, but
that would be the best option. I think it makes sense to sit down and go through the maybe painful process of understanding, do I do things because I want to feel busy, or do I make things because they make sense? So first of all, when it comes to social media, I always say start with one platform. Don't be on Facebook and on Twitter, on Snapchat, blah, blah, blah. Especially when you don't have other, employees or interns or people who can help you with that. Start with one platform, the platform where you find your customer avatar, the person that buys the most. Then next thing is also, a lot of people have different avatars, so they need to have different messages. Forget about that. Just focus on that one person with that one message, and also ask yourself, what is your best-selling service? Because a lot of people have this and this and this and this, and they experiment with that. And I did that as well in the beginning, but I did everything in just a little bit. So I tested it, and then I killed and eliminated everything that doesn't make me money, that I love. Okay, nice, it's a hobby. Let's focus on, where the money goes. And ask yourself why you're not making money. Is it because your messaging is unclear? Is it because you don't get content out there? Is it because you don't make enough calls? Is it because you cannot close calls? If you cannot close deals, then maybe hire somebody who does that small bit for you. Because in the end, it's about getting your brand out there, creating that brand, doing the marketing, but then the closing thing is the sales part. And this is something that nobody ever teaches us. And it's still a big fear, because a lot of people don't want to be salesy and what that they actually mean and or they're too shy to sell their services. So I would say figure out where you're wasting time, focus on one thing, know if you're able to close, and if not, then hire somebody who will help you with that.
I love it. Yeah. Because I see a lot of people say, well, I'm supposed to be on Instagram, and they'll spend a ton of time on Instagram, and they'll just keep, even after 6 months or a year, if nothing's happening, they'll just keep doing it. And it's like, why? Well, because I'm supposed to be there. So I love that advice about, figure out where you're getting the results and focus there, which is excellent. Well, for those listening, we're going to take some questions from the live audience watching in the Freedom Club community. If you're not a member of the Freedom Club community, please go to Facebook, type in the Freedom Club community, and you can join. And we do live streams like this, live tapings of the podcast. And so I'd love to go. We have a number of people watching live. I've answered some of the questions that you submitted beforehand. But does anyone else have any questions? Good morning, Sharon, Zoe, Michael, Jordan, Kimberly.
Hello.
Happy New Year, John. Thanks, Freddie. Yeah, I saw you join. Freddie was the one who asked a question about the insurance, selling insurance. Kent Sinclair says, isn't red an angry color, Kurt?
It is very self-confident. It's very energetic.
I had a post that got a lot of traction a couple weeks ago. In my videos, I just come across as no excuses, no BS. And so someone said they were considering working with me, and they texted me back and said, no, you come across as angry sometimes and not wanting to help people out who are trying to figure it out. So I took the snippet of that and I used it in content as a post saying, just talked about how I was raised and I was bullied, and my grandfathers were, one was a POW, the other one had shrapnel in his body. I'm like, I'm sorry. If you want to build a business, that's just me, and I'm not for everyone. It was actually my one article that went sort of viral, and it was, the title was something like "Why You Should Start Pissing More People Off."
Ooh.
And the purpose of it wasn't like go up to people on the street and piss them off. It was more, if you are who you are, and just by being you, I mean, I get angry comments about my beard. I get angry comments about my superhero shirts. I get angry comments about this and that. But being yourself, and if that pisses people off, and there's some people who just vehemently disagree with me on that. In terms of, no, read Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's like, well, Dale Carnegie pissed a lot of people off. And you talked a little bit about growing up, right? And kind of that conformity and people wanting to do a certain way. So where's the kind of middle ground between wanting to fit in, right, and appeal to a lot of people, or is there a middle ground, and then conforming?
I would say make sure that your core customer or ideal client falls and work with you, will do business with you. That's important. And if somehow along the way, the masses also will like you, fantastic. But in the end, you don't need the approval of other people to do what you do. And the content that we share, the articles that we write, time. So this, content, I see it as my gift. And if you don't want to have it, you can say no. You can also disagree with me. And you don't need to see the world as I see. So our lessons learned, we hope to inspire people, to help people. And everybody who wants that gift, fantastic. And if there are other people who don't want it, doesn't matter. I mean, I give my best to speak my own truth without insulting other people, without gossiping, or without judging. And when I do that, I mention that it's for entertaining purposes, just to make people laugh. And I will not mention any names, and it was super anonymous. So nobody can really get offended through that. Or if that person gets offended, that again is not my problem, because it's just something that I triggered in that person. I mean, I've just written this article, or not written, I republished this article about haters and trolls. In the end, there are some people who are so insecure and really don't like themselves, and they believe that when they drag somebody down, or they get a negative comment out there, they will shine brighter, or they will feel better, which comes from a scarcity and non-abundance thinking of there's not enough happiness, there's not enough success. And when I take away the happiness or success from somebody else, it means there will be more for me, which is stupid and ridiculously ignorant. But this is how still a lot of people think. And I give my best to share what works for me. And I want everybody to find their own version of success and own version of happiness. That's it. That's my middle ground, or middle path.
Love it. Love it. Kent Sinclair asks, we were talking about colors. I assume that the colors used on marketing flyers is just as true as clothing and other marketing like McDonald's?
Yep, absolutely. It's the same thing when it comes to clothes, to logos, to landing pages, web pages, your gadgets, anything that is part of your brand. When you use the right color, you can create a few very interesting reactions, the reactions that you actually want to. I mean, when we also need to keep in mind that social media is very fast. People spend less than 4 seconds on a post. So you need to do something to stand out. How do you do that? Use the color red. Use colors. Use emotions. A picture of somebody who's screaming, a picture of somebody who's aggressive, a picture of somebody who's laughing, a picture of somebody who's crying. Something to trigger this emotion and to stop people from scrolling and actually maybe reading your content.
That's awesome. Kimberly asks, great discussion. How best to create your personal brand if you're working in a different area now? So if your corporate career in one area, but her passion is in another aspect of that one. And I know Kimberly coaches now and does how to do that if you've kind of shifted to different areas?
I would tell my story of change. I'll start with, hey guys, I worked in corporate for so many years. I had this side hustle, and now I'm here and I'm following my passion. And I might not be there yet where I impress the majority of people. Actually, that's not my target anyway. But for the case that you're looking for credibility, well, I'm here at the moment and just share my journey. But I promise you that along the way, you will see things that will hopefully help you and that you'll find exciting. So it's then about telling that journey, showing people that you're growing, that you're evolving, getting testimonials, ticking the boxes of credibility. So can you win an award? Can you be featured in this magazine? Can you shake hands with that person? Can you have a picture with that person? So that people see that your professionalism and experience and credibility in that area is also great, or on that level that they would start hiring you. So it's a journey. It will take time, but also have a look at what other people did. Maybe there's somebody who has a similar job or does a similar job that you do right now and has a similar background. So see how he or she went through that transition. I was very open about it, and I said, I'm going through change. I'm a mess. I have no clue, but it's going to be a hell of a ride. So follow me if you want to, see me doing what I do. And majority of people are curious, and that's how I did it.
Freddie Brown asks, what books did you read about social media and successful people? Or I guess, which would you recommend?
Social media and successful people. The biggest book about personal branding was actually a German one, so that doesn't help.
Freddie, did you speak German?
Exactly. It was called Impression Management by I think it's by a German professor somewhere working at a university. So that was a good one. Success. Let me think. I really loved Anything You Want by Derek Sivers. That one is a game changer for me because he taught me that I can do anything that I want with my business. And I think I read it 3 times because it's also very short. As an audiobook, it's just an hour or something. I was sitting there staring at the wall thinking, wow, amazing. But where do I start? I still don't know. So that one is awesome. Tim Ferriss, The 4-Hour Work Week, was also the slap in the face that I needed, because he again showed me the rule doesn't exist. You need to figure out what you want to do. That helped me a lot. What else? Social media. To be honest, when it comes to social media, I read a lot online. I read articles, I did online courses. There's not one book I even read about social media when it comes to that. No, just the German impression management book. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, that's great. So 4-Hour Work Week, that's a great, I love that book, but it's a good segue into our final question from Luke Sievers. And I say segue because Luke, I was at our family, our kids, we have 4 children, right? And so we had a number of gift cards and we had to Barnes and Noble, and Barnes and Noble is like Disney World to us. We just love it. And I transitioned from reading books on my iPad to now I just love actual real books.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting there, I'm standing there, I'm in the business section, right? And I'm looking for a book that I wanted. And there's a guy next to me and says, "Are you Kurt?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "My name's Luke. I just joined the Freedom Club, your Facebook group." So it was funny. So we talked, well, Luke was looking for the 4-Hour Work Week. And I said, that book changed my life. So that's a segue because Luke has the final question here. Luke asks, I feel that in business, people connect with people more than they do with a faceless brand.
Yeah.
Do you feel there is a shift toward building your business brand around a person or personality? In other words, having the business owner be the face of your brand?
I highly believe in that. There are even statistics out there that say that people engage up to 10 times more likely with a person than with a company or a brand on LinkedIn. So it makes sense because in the end, we buy or we do business with people, not with a company. What does that even mean? A company that is, in the end, it's people. So it makes sense to share your story. It makes sense to talk about your employees. It makes sense to go out there, to add value, to help people. And when they like you, when they think that you're cool, they will also ask what you're actually doing for a living. And this is, I think, this is the new way how you get yourself out there, how you generate leads, and how you will definitely not fall into the trap of being salesy because you're being you. And oh, by the way, this is also my business. If it's interesting, let me know. So I would definitely go for the personal brand. At least this is, this is true when it comes to the people that I work with who are coaches, consultants. If you in the long term want to sell your business, if your focus is to really build up that business, make it amazing, and then selling it, it makes sense to focus more on the company brand, because then everybody knows you, but then, right, it might create confusion. So it depends a little bit on your overall targets, but the majority of people that I work with, they want to create a business that allows them to live in a specific way. So it makes sense to focus on the personal brand.
That's excellent. Well, Natalia, I want to thank you so much for joining us, not only for the podcast, but for the live discussion here in the Freedom Club community. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I really love the questions. If there are any other questions that come up later on, let me know and I'll give my best to answer them.
Yeah, and if people want to get in touch with you, learn more about you, book you to speak, whatever, where's the best place for them to go?
The best place is my webpage, thinknatalia.com. Or if you want to know more about what I do on social media, on LinkedIn, have a look at my LinkedIn profile. You'll find me under Dr. Natalia Wiechowski.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.